Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. We start our video with a story in which a friend of our OP tried to fire him, but our OP turned out to be more tricky. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I turn the tables. Context. I'm a Year 9 student, British schooling system, and go to a very good school. This is a massive privilege to have, and I'm massively thankful for it. Our school has a magazine which we print and distribute to teachers, students, and parents, and it's very popular. I'm fortunate enough to be the assistant editor of the magazine. I basically format and check the magazine while making sure everyone in the committee is doing well, and it's hard work. As part of this role, I have to teach and mentor the new students and get them used to the new system. Being in the committee is like having a job, so balancing it with school is tough, and lots of newbies drop out very quick when they begin to realize they can't handle the workload. I enjoy teaching the new guys as it's mostly people who love writing as much as I do, and it really gives us a connection that does stick around. However, last year, I had a very bad mentoree whom I dislike to this very day. Cast. Me. Take a guess. WI, very cool and kind teacher and head editor of the magazine. AM, a-hole mentoree. BF, one of my best friends. Now, I knew AM before he joined the committee. We were friends, we'd been into town with each other a bit, and we were good mates, so I was excited to be mentoring him. The way mentoring works is that there are 7 tasks to complete and have checked by your mentor, leading up to a big review 6 weeks after one first joins. The tasks are fairly easy: learn how to Photoshop pictures for the photographers and learning the format of the articles to make my life easier. Now, I teach the mentorees in a way which means that I set them a task and it has a deadline, which I will take in the work, check it, and give feedback on. It works well, and I've always done the mentoring this way. When I set the first task for AM, I was really confident in his ability because we were and still are at a really good school. I genuinely believed that he would do it and I'd have no problems. However, as you've probably guessed, I was very wrong. And when it was time for his first task to be checked, this happened. Me. Where's the work, AM? AM. I wasn't able to do it, OP. Me. Why? It was a fairly simple task. If you had any problems, I told you to ask me about them. AM. Well, the thing is... AM takes a massive breath, and I expect the worst. My dad just got in a really bad car accident, and I've been at the hospital the past few days. I was shocked. This guy's dad was in intensive care, and I was ready to give him a hard time for not doing some work. I immediately apologized and almost had a panic attack. I gave him an extra week to do his work. I was a terrible person. I went home and sobbed about how mean I was ready to be. I came in the next day and avoided him as much as possible. At this point, I didn't even suspect a thing. When it came to his second task, and the first task being checked, I was nervous but prepared. Me. How'd you find the work? AM. I couldn't finish either of them. At this point, I was just pissed. He told me privately that he wasn't in the hospital as much anymore, so I was confused. Me. Come on, this is starting to get silly. Your review is soon and you haven't even started the tasks. AM. Merson, it's because my cat got put down. It was really old and I've had it since birth, so I was really attached to it. This really made me upset. I have 2 cats and I love them to pieces. I couldn't even imagine their death, so I told AM I was sorry, but he needed to either get the work done or take an official break and leave the committee briefly. This gets put on a report, which is kept by WI, and it's about the bad things a person in the committee has done. This back and forth of work? Nope, and here's why, went on until literally the day before his review. I had sat down with him and spoke to him about how he had not done any of the work and had 6+ hours of work to do for the next day. He was really apologetic, but I had become totally immune to his shenanigans by this point. He'd really ticked me off. By this point, I didn't know if he was lying or not, but I had my suspicions. Then his review came around. I was terrified. You see, as his mentor, if he does badly, I get in trouble for not doing my job well enough. I am a massive goody two-shoes. I've never had a detention, and I was petrified of getting one as my parents would not approve. AM, WI, and I sit down, and when WI asks to see the work, AM says he hasn't got any of it. Before I can interrupt and explain the situation, AM goes on to say that he had handed in all of his work, but I had said that none of it was good enough and threw it all out before the review. WI gave me a death stare. I was crapping bricks. In my first year of being in the committee, I had lied to WI about doing some work. This had been put on my report, and I got screamed at for 15 minutes straight. He said I had delayed printing by over a week, and I was incompetent, etc. We moved past it, and now we enjoy each other's company very much, and essentially if I made any mistakes, I was getting fired. I looked at AM, shocked about what he'd said, and stuttered to WI the actual situation and all the lies he told me. WI didn't believe me, as not so long ago, I had lied. I then made it my absolute mission to prove everything he had told me in WI was wrong, but there was one problem. I didn't arrange anything over a traceable source. I hadn't emailed him or texted him other than on Snapchat, but that deletes messages after being read. It looked like I was going to get fired, and I only had a few days to prove my innocence before I was gone. The plan. Finally. That evening, I went into town with some friends. AM wasn't present, and I sat down with BF. She was texting AM on iMessage, so I told her what had happened about the committee and AM. She was shocked and believed me over AM. This is when the plan was hatched. Firstly, I needed evidence, and BF gave me exactly what I needed. She took AM into town on a date as he liked her. She then began a conversation about she heard I was being nominated for an award about me writing for the school magazine. This was actually true. I won an award for England's Young Journalist of the Year and Best Featured Article about my transgender sister. #humblebrag. BF then set her phone to record the entire conversation. This included AM admitting to screwing me over so he could eventually take my position as assistant editor. BF then sent this to me, and I stored it on my computer in sweet revenge. I sent the voice message to WI, and he too was shocked. He apologized profusely to me, and I told him that I didn't want him to fire AM yet, and then told him my plan. He was worried, but on board because of what he did to me. I met with AM the next day to apologize for being too harsh about his tasks and beg him to retract his statement about me. He obviously said no. As protocol states, I had to give other members my ongoing articles, and I gave AM my award-winning transgender article and said that I had changed, so I was talking about a different girl rather than my sister. However, I actually changed it to make it horribly transphobic, like disgustingly transphobic. He thanked me and left. The next few weeks, I didn't show up to any meetings and made it seem like I had actually been kicked out, but I stayed aware of the situation in the committee and kept up to date on my articles. Because this was the kind of person he was, AM didn't even read the article I'd sent him before he handed it in. So WI received a heavily transphobic and sexist article which AM wrote, supposedly. WI called AM into his room, and AM was screamed at for writing such a horrible article, and then played the voice tape back so he knew that he'd been caught. The head teacher of the school found out about the article AM had wrote, and AM was put into isolation. You get taught on your own in a separate room where you spend lunch and break, etc. for a week. He was also fired from the committee immediately and got a mark on his permanent record. And our next story. Call the police? Sure. In our mid-20s, my husband and I purchased and moved into our rather modest first house with our infant daughter. I made a big effort to meet and befriend our neighbors, and all of them warned me to be careful of one particular person, Jane. Jane had lived on the street for 3 years, and at this point had earned herself the nickname Big Fat Jane, as she was manipulating, intimidating, and thoroughly awful. Jane ran a daycare from her house, but neighbors on both sides reported hearing her scream at the children and leave them unsupervised in the garden. It's important to note that Jane's partner is a police officer. The neighbors were scared of retaliation if they reported her or stood up to her. It seemed Jane would use this to get away with her horrific behavior. Our house had a driveway with a dropped curb big enough for one car, but we could fit both if you blocked in the first and only used the second car. Parking on the street was very limited, and we had double yellow lines outside of our house, not allowed to stop/park there. During some essential roof work, our driveway was taken up by scaffolding and a skip, so we parked in the street and my husband parked outside BFJ's house. The next day, when he went to his car, BFJ came running down her path shouting at him. She screamed about his antisocial parking, that his car would be towed, and that he could expect it to be scratched up if he left it there any longer. My husband calmly explained it was a public road and she had no right to police the space. Her screeches at this point were loud enough that I and several neighbors heard and came to see the commotion. Her partner was perched at the door during all of this, saying and doing nothing. When she saw me on pavement with our daughter, she pointed and screamed, "You'll have the social on you if you don't F off. I'll scratch you right up." At this point, I told my husband to come back and we were calling the police. She responded, "Call the police? I effing dare you." He's, pointing at her partner, "A policeman. He'll effing sort you out. You won't know what hit you." At this point, my husband looked at her husband and said, "Is that right? And you're agreeing with what she said?" The partner nodded and said, "You need to move or accept the consequences. You call the police, it won't get you anywhere." Funny, when I then took out my phone and dialed the non-police emergency number on speakerphone and made a police report, both of them looked a lot less confident. BFJ stood there open-mouthed and grabbed her partner and slammed the door. We haven't heard from her since. Her partner was placed on suspension due to the allegation and further allegations from our neighbors. After our confrontation, BFJ was given a warning for a public order offense. However, due to a number of reports, her daycare closed and she's no longer able to mind children. Their house is up for sale. However, as she made a number of modifications without proper planning or works people, its price is significantly lower than they expected and they're in negative equity. All because of a parking space. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.